Good morning. Welcome to the training webinar. If you're watching this on YouTube, it may or may not be morning. Good diurnal time period in which you're watching. Hi, I'm Dale Franks, and today we are going to talk about custom tasks. Not any specific ones, although we probably will take a look at a couple of them a little bit later on. But basically, this is just sort of a basic explanation of custom tasks and kind of a tips and tricks thing, and to give you some hints on how and when you might want to use them, and some things to know about custom tasks that might not necessarily relate directly to implementation, but that will give you hopefully a little better understanding of custom tasks and how they work and how to use them and how to make the decision about when and where to use the custom tasks in the system. So with that, let me share my screen and we'll get into it. As always, if you have any questions, and you might, so if you have any sort of general questions about custom tasks, please go ahead and ask them at your Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There should be a Q&A button. And if you click that, it'll allow you to type your question in, and I can go ahead and answer it live. I'll get a little notification on my screen that you've asked a question, and I can just go ahead and answer it directly. Custom tasks are not technically built into Process Director. What they do is they incorporate some functionality that is very commonly used, but would be super tedious to have to configure Process Director to do this sort of stuff every time. So over time, the library of custom tasks has grown, and as we add new features to the product, we add new custom tasks for those features. For example, back in 2019, whenever we added case management to the product, we added some case management custom tasks. And so there are new custom tasks that get added from time to time in the system. The custom tasks should all be placed in the root level of your partition into a folder that has this name, Custom Tasks, with a set of square brackets surrounding the name. This is the general convention that we use at BP Logix to get them to sort themselves all together at the top of the content list. So any of what we call system folders, of which custom tasks is one, we put them inside these square brackets for the names, and that way they all show up at the top of the content list. Just so that you know, with the new UI, if I toggle system folders with this middle icon right here at the top of the content list, it will actually take them out of view so that we only see the folders that are not system folders in the content list. And basically, we can navigate to all of the applications and whatnot that we create on the system outside of those system folders. We expect, however, you to build your own system folders if you want, business values, business rules, data sources, any sort of data that you might have, like Excel spreadsheets that get imported into the system. These are global objects, so we consider them system objects as well. So they go inside their own folders with their own square brackets. Now, that is entirely optional. You can choose to do that or not. We recommend that you do, simply because it helps organize your system in a more logical fashion so that you can understand it. But the custom tasks really do have to go in this specific folder. That is not optional, and it does need to be at the root of your partition. And you need to have a copy of the custom tasks folder in every partition. So, for example, let me log out as me, and let me log back in as BPL support. And when I do, I have multiple partitions in my content list. So I now have this default partition, this development partition, and this test partition. At the root level of these partitions, they each have that custom task folder. If you have multiple partitions on your system, partitions don't talk to one another, and we can't shuffle data back and forth between partitions. Therefore, we have to have that custom task folder at the root level of every partition. The primary reason is for importing and exporting between systems. So generally, if you have the full suite of process director installations that we recommend, you have a development server, which is where all of your development occurs. You have a staging server where you do testing, including user testing for new applications and your general, Q&A stuff. And then you have your production server. Because you use custom tasks a lot, and because of the way the export import works, those custom tasks have to be in the same folder. I've explained it before, so I'll just be very brief in explaining it again. Every object in process director has its own unique ID called a GUID. GUIDs cannot be exported between systems. So whenever you do an export or import, what process director has to do is look at the name of an object and its folder path and see if it can find that same object in the same folder path on the system into which you import it. So if you're going to use a custom task, let's just use a copy case. So I want to copy case information from one case to another. Okay, I have a case management application. I use this custom task in some portion of my application. I export it out of dev. I re-import it into my production system, and process director has to find the link to that custom task. It is going to look in the custom tasks directory, the case subdirectory, and then it's going to look for the name copy case. It would be nice if we didn't have to do this, if there was some magical unique ID that could be shared between systems, but there's not. So we have to do this text slash file folder location text matching whenever we do the import. So it's very important that all of your custom tasks reside in the exact same place in all of the same partitions. The name when you import your custom tasks will be inside these square brackets. And so you should put it in the root level of your partition, in this case, the default partition. What happens if you don't do that? Again, not recommended, but technically, as long as all of your custom tasks are in the exact same folder locations in all of your systems, then technically they don't necessarily have to be at the root of the default partition. That's the best place to put them, and it's the place where they're easiest to find. And since they are global objects, that's where you should put them. But technically, you don't have to. What you do have to do, however, is ensure that the custom task folder is in the exact same relative folder path with the exact same names in all of your systems. Theoretically, you could put this in some subfolder somewhere. You could theoretically rename all the custom tasks, I suppose. And they'd still work, but they'd have to be exactly the same on all your system. That seems like a lot of extra effort to accomplish nothing, but technically you could do it. Our recommendation, of course, is that they go here. The custom tasks themselves are generally universally usable. And let me just go into the custom tasks directly, and let me pin the content list so that we can see them both at the same time. Technically, all these custom tasks are perfectly usable. At least they used to be. Unfortunately, some of the data types for some custom tasks are not controlled by us. Back until about 2017, there were a number of custom tasks that we offered for free. They were just part of the product and they all worked. So the Salesforce custom tasks, the OData custom tasks, the MS Dynamics custom tasks, All of them used to just work right out of the box. However, the licensing for OData has changed. OData, the OData data connection protocol was acquired by a company called CData, and CData changed the licensing terms to require you to buy a unique license. So it couldn't be covered under our license as a developer anymore. They stripped that away from us and said, yeah, we want the money directly from your customers. This did not make us giddy with delight, but we don't own OData, so we have to live with it. So there are some types of custom tasks that simply will not work unless you purchase a separate license from CData, which you would then have to supply to us, or you would then have to, if you're an on-premise customer, you'd have to install that license on your own server. If you're a cloud customer, you would send that licensing info to us. We'd have to install it on your server so that you could use MS Dynamics or OData or Salesforce. And I think there's one more in here, but it escapes me which one it is off the top of my head. And you'll need those are separately licensed. Didn't used to be, but now that CData runs the licensing, that's the world we have to live in. So it is what it is, as they say. All the other ones, however, are perfectly free for you to use. They are just, well, they're technically not part of the application, which we'll talk about in a second, but technically they're part of the application. I would not want to run a Process Director installation without the custom tasks, but the custom tasks are separate. For any custom task, and we'll just grab one at random here, we're going to attach document. That's fine. Custom tasks are basically little tiny applications that are built, and they generally have some custom scripts that are associated with them that do specific things on your system. Makes your life easier to be able to, as in this case, just attach a document that exists somewhere in your content list and attach it to a process, which I've demonstrated in the Form Custom Tasks training webinar. You can look at that on YouTube. If you go over to the OK menu, you'll see that there is a preview custom config. I do find that I use this a fair amount, basically because I actually want to see the version number of the custom task. As I said, the custom tasks are not actually related to the core product of Process Director. They are add-ons. They are necessary add-ons, but they are not part of any specific Process Director version. In fact, we take great pains to try to ensure that the custom tasks are always backwards compatible so that they're usable across, any Process Director version that you might have. As a result, well, there's also another little wrinkle, which is that each one of the custom tasks are independent. None of the custom tasks are really related to any of the other ones. They're all basically tiny independent applications that have their own rich, full, and independent lives, which means they also have their own version numbers. Now, the version numbers for custom tasks are super simple. They're basically a date timestamp. That's all they are, really. So I can look at a custom task, I can look at the version number, and it tells me that this custom task was created in, it was published by us on March 11th, 2019. I think 3 is March, isn't it? January, February, March. Yes, 3 is March. So this is basically the year, month, and date. And that's the only kind of version numbers that custom tasks have. Because they are each individually tiny little applications, they're all individually programmed, they're all individually generally released, it makes it a little bit harder to keep track of what custom tasks are the current version and what are previous versions. So whenever we update a custom task, we release a new version of the entire custom task suite. It would be very confusing to have to, import custom tasks individually into your system. So if you go to the technical support site and you log in, there is a downloads page, which has this little cute cloud icon. And if we click on that, it will take us to the download page, and we can see all of the release notes for Process Director going all the way back to version 2, for goodness sakes. And right above that, we have our Process Director downloads page, and that's where everything is downloaded. So you have to scroll down. There's your Process Director download. And here are your custom tasks. So our last release of custom tasks was on 23 January. So that was the most recent time that we made an edit to a custom task and reissued the custom tasks. You do need to come here on a semi-regular basis to be sure that you have the newest version of the custom tasks. Now, just because this custom task version, it's a zip file that contains the PDZ to import into the system. Even though that we sort of released them all as a bundle, it could just be that we made a change to a single custom task. And that's the only custom task that's changed. But downloading the entire bundle is pretty simple. You can just import the entire bundle into your system. Now, you may notice this little note right down here: legacy custom tasks only for Process Director 4.41 and below. Okay. I did say that the custom tasks are independent of the Process Director version. That is not universally true. Back in version 4.41, we sort of made a major change to the behind the scenes architecture of the product. It didn't affect all custom tasks, but it did affect certain database related custom tasks that needed to be updated. So, and I'm not sure there's anybody who's still on version 4.41 anymore. If you are way behind time on updating your product. However, in that case, because the change we made to the product's architecture made some of the custom tasks, when we released 4.41, it made some of the custom tasks unreadable by the system, and they had to be updated based on changes we made to Process Director. That may happen occasionally. As you can see, the last time it happened was for version 4.41. That goes back to probably 2016-ish or so, 2017, somewhere in there. So you really shouldn't be running Process Director 4.41 at this point. But if you are, you will need a separate set of custom tasks, because the current custom tasks just won't work on the older version, and the older custom tasks won't work on the newer version. As you can see, we have one legacy custom task version. So that tells you how often we actually have to change it based on some change in the product. The answer is not very often, once in the 10 years or so that I've been here. But just keep in mind that there may be times when the change to the product is so significant that it's going to break some custom tasks, and some custom tasks will only work with current versions. So the current custom tasks we have are pretty backwards compatible. Anything from 4.5 to now, they work on. So that's 7-8 years worth of different product versions. Actually, 2 different product versions, going from 4.5 to 6.1, so 4, 5, and 6. That's a pretty wide range of compatibility, but this is where you would go, and this is where you would download them. I do find the ability to preview custom configs, certainly whenever I'm trying to help customers who have questions about CTs in their implementations. And one of the things I may ask you whenever you say, hey, the CT isn't working the way I expect it to work, is I'll say, what custom task version are you on? So it's convenient to be able to just go into the custom task to find it here at the top of the content list, and then just preview the custom config. That way you can see what the custom task version is, and you know that that's what I'm looking for. And I still do find sometimes that there are customers who have older, outdated versions of the custom task. Probably not attached document, since that isn't a custom task that changes a lot, but there are some custom tasks that we update from time to time. So do go to the downloads page, grab the most recent version of the custom task just to be sure that you have them, and import them into the root of your process director system. The custom tasks are separated into sort of the function that they perform inside Process Director. So, if you're wanting to do something with Active Directory and you want to use a custom task to, fill fields from Active Directory or whatever, there's an Active Directory section. Case content actions, those are, you're doing something in the content list. You're either exporting items from the content list, or you're moving them, or you're copying them, or you're taking items that are that live somewhere out on a file system or in an email system, and you're importing them into Process Director to make some sort of alteration to a content list object. Database connectors are all about database connections and SQL commands and talking to external data. Documents are for document handling within Process Director. Form, these are obviously custom tasks that either alter forms or that generally work inside forms. It's important to understand that while most custom tasks can be used in either a form or a process timeline, some custom tasks can't. So the form custom tasks are generally, although not universally, I don't think, but generally, they can only be used inside a form definition itself. They can't run them from a timeline. For example, the validate form custom task. You can only validate a form whenever there is a form being displayed with form fields that need to be validated. You can't validate a form from a process timeline because the form has to be validated before it is submitted. Once you're running in the process timeline, that form has already been submitted. There's no validation to do. There's no mechanism to validate that form. So some custom tasks, and a lot of these, like set focus is another one, that actually moves your cursor to a specific control on a form. If the form is not being displayed to you, it can't receive focus. So again, this is a custom task that can only be used inside a form. And when you're trying to configure a custom task, this custom task just won't be available to you in the process timeline whenever you are trying to configure a custom task activity type. Most custom tasks are available in the timeline. They make sense to be able to run from the timeline. However, some custom tasks can only run in a process timeline. Some custom tasks can only run inside a form. Some custom tasks can't be run from either a form or a process timeline. Back in Process Director version 1, we built a different process model than the process timeline. We called it the workflow. It is a flowchart-based process model. We do not recommend that you use it. We certainly don't recommend that you use it for anything new. The process timeline has been in the product since version 2. That is our primary process model. However, we do have workflow still in the product. Technically, it still works. It hasn't received any updates since version 4.5, so we haven't really touched it for 8 years. However, it still technically exists in the product, largely for legacy purposes, because we do have customers who back in version 2 got into workflows, and now they have these legacy applications that are still running workflows. And that's fine. And there are some custom tasks that only work in workflows. I would point you to, because I was reminded of it this week by a technical support ticket, the jump to step custom task. If you do not use workflows, you will never use this custom task because it only works in the context of a workflow object. It's still in the product, but basically none of you should be using it right now because workflow was superseded so long ago. In fact, if you look at our documentation on workflow, I've got the big purple box that says, don't get into this. Go back to process timeline. Here be dragons. So there are a couple of custom tasks like jump to step that are just not useful to you in the modern process director world. Certainly not really since version 3, because you shouldn't really be using workflows anymore. Workflows have been deprecated. We don't even update them anymore. Yeah, if you happen to find some sort of horrific bug in a workflow, we'll fix it. But all of the new functionality all gets added to process timelines, and that's been true since version 4.5. So there are some old ones that still exist here, like jump to step, that are not very useful to you, but they still exist. In any event, all of these different types of custom tasks correlate to what they do. The process custom task is a little confusing because some customers have expressed an incorrect understanding that because they're in the process section, they can only be used in a process timeline. Not true. They can be used in a form, or at least some of them can. The term process is just basically a grouping term that says we're going to be doing things with the process with these types of custom tasks, process being a process timeline, of course. As I said, Salesforce, MS Dynamics, these are all OData custom tasks, including the plain Jane OData custom tasks. If you don't have the license from CData, you won't be able to use those custom tasks. I'm still showing social media custom tasks. I'll just tell you straight up, none of these work. No one uses them anymore. I think we had one customer that kind of used them extensively back in the late teens. However, both Facebook and Twitter have changed their APIs, and they've both implemented OAuth and what have you. Nobody seems to be using these custom tasks anywhere. So I still have them on my system. And you can see I updated whenever we released the new version. But I mean, they've been sitting on the system for years, but they're basically not usable at this point because of the changes that have been made to Facebook and Twitter, and frankly, because the lack of interest that any of our customers have in being able to post to those two social media systems. So they may still exist. I'm just telling you, they don't work. And we know that they don't work. And as far as we can tell, our customers don't care that they don't work. So there's that. While the CTs do a lot of useful things, you probably shouldn't use them if there is any way to accomplish what you want to do in the UI. Remember, I said earlier, these are kind of like little separate applications that just happen to reside in Process Director, and the applications do specific things. But some of these custom tasks have largely been deprecated by the fact that the things that we used to have to do with a custom task, we can do in the form. I would refer specifically to the set form data custom task and the fill fields. Actually, fill fields from business value is not it. It's set form data, and I think we have to go into database connectors and advanced field drop down from DB. advanced fill fields from DB, fill dropdown from DB, and fill fields from DB. You don't need to use these custom tasks anymore. Now, they exist and they have to stay in the product because you used to have to use them. But the functionality that these custom tasks incorporate are now already built into the product. So if I was to go into a form, which is what I am actually going to do, and to do that, I'm going to have to actually create the form. So I want to create a form definition, and we'll just call it CT webinar. And I don't really want to go to the online form designer. I want to go to the form itself. The Set Form Data tab now enables you to set the value of a form field to anything you want. You can do it from an external data source by using a business value. You can use a business rule. You can use an arbitrary value. You can use a system variable. It doesn't really matter. You can fill that field from anywhere. And of course, now that business values exist and there is a Set Form Data tab on the form, there's literally no need to use the Set Form Data custom task, at least not inside the form definition itself. This does not mean that the Set Form Data custom task is not useful. It is, and I can show you, and you probably already know if you've been listening, where I use it routinely, but we don't use it in the form anymore. It's just not necessary. And probably 99% of the use of custom tasks are, for that custom task anyway, for Set Form Data, can be accomplished here in the Set Form Data tab, where you just add an action. We'll use display, I guess. And well, I don't have any form field, so I can't specify the value of a form field, but you can do that all here. Similarly, the Fill Dropdowns tab makes the Fill Dropdowns custom task unnecessary as well. This largely deprecates that, because if I have a dropdown on the form and I want to fill it from an external database, I don't need to configure the CT to make that happen. I can just go to the Fill Dropdowns tab and just build it into the form. And the nice thing about having it done that way, especially in the context, which is probably the most common one, of I'm pulling external data from some external data source and I'm placing it onto a form, either through a Set Form Data or to fill the options out in a dropdown via the Fill Dropdowns tab. If I've got that encapsulated in a business value, it's already configured. It's available to me anywhere in the product. I can reuse it over and over and over again on every Fill Dropdowns tab on every form. That's not the case with the custom task. If I go to the custom task event mapping and I decide, okay, well, I just want to do a fill fields from database, so fill fields from DB, and I add that custom task, okay, that's fine. I can set the event. We'll do it again on form display, and then I hit my configure button. Okay, great. I can now configure my custom task to go to the database. Well, this is going to be a little bit of a pain, because every time I use this custom task, I have to completely reconfigure it from scratch. And so I have to configure the same database connection and the same table and table fields that I need. I have to put in my same filters. I have to keep doing this. And of course, I have to add the field mapping. Get super old to have to redo this every time. Oh, and by the way, if I need to do this twice on the same form in two different events, I have to run this custom task twice in that form to make that happen, which means I have to I have to configure it two times separately. There's no copying the configuration from one CT to another. It all has to be done independently. It adds a huge amount of time to just building a regular application if I have to completely reconnect to my DB from scratch in every single custom task, perhaps even multiple times in the same form. So if there's a UI alternative, you want to use that UI alternative. If you can avoid using a custom task, as a general rule, you should, simply because running a custom task adds additional overhead to your application. And it might be minimal and it might not even be something that you notice, but every microsecond or every millisecond adds up. And so if you can just build it into the form on either the set form data or the fill dropdowns tab, your life is going to be a lot easier. Plus, it's a lot easier and faster to just configure here on those two tabs rather than to try to, build a custom task from scratch. On the other hand, there are some custom tasks that you absolutely positively need to use on a form. I have a metadata training webinar. If you want to get the details, you can certainly look at that webinar. However, the metadata custom task, especially the set metadata custom task, you do have to run that on every form where you want to use form fields to set metadata. There's a little bit of confusion when it comes to metadata and why this custom task is necessary. Because if you go inside the form design, I don't want to go inside the form design there. I want to go back to my form here. If we go into the form design for our webinar form. Okay, well, that was weird. I'm sorry. I just saw something odd going on there in my content list that caught my attention. Forgive me, lost my train of thought. So if we go into the form design itself, there are a couple of controls called the category picker and the attribute picker. So there's a category picker, and I'm not even sure it's going to work on this system, by the way. It may. We'll take a look at it just to be sure. But this particular version may be bugged. It would probably be better off if I did this on my other system, but we're here now, so I guess we're stuck with it. So I've got these two controls. They're both metadata controls. They're called category picker and attribute picker. And assuming that the metadata bug on this particular installation is not affecting it, I'll be able to see the categories and the attributes on the system. I'm not sure, but I should be able to. So there we go. Yeah, there they are. Here are all of my categories on the system. So I can set a category, and then I've got attributes, IT development. Did I put two category pickers here? I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter. These are metadata controls. They actually go into the metadata system and they show me these options from the metadata controls. And actually, I probably wouldn't use a metadata picker. I'd probably do it in a different way to set the attributes. But in any event, no, I did put an attribute picker on there. But in any event, what you would think would be that when this form is running, I probably should have kept it running, huh? What you might think is that when this form is running, what I would want to be able to do is to just be able to pick a value and submit the form, and then magic would happen and it would associate that form with that metadata. So it runs here and I say, oh, well, this is all great. This is perfect. I'm just going to this cross application metadata HR. And again, I should not have done this because none of my attributes are going to be pickable from here. My attributes are all like text attributes. I'd need a text or a date field to actually set those values. In any event, you would think that just by filling this out and hitting submit, that it would apply that metadata to that form instance that I just submitted. Not true. Before I submit this form, that metadata needs to be set. So this is one of these weird custom tasks, and it's the only one I can think of off the top of my mind. But this set metadata custom task, you have to run it to set the actual metadata. What those picker controls allow you to do is to select the metadata, and it will actually store the metadata values as data in the form field. What it will not do automatically is take the data that you set and apply it to the form itself. You have to run the set metadata custom task to specifically apply the metadata to the object that you want to apply it to. For example, let's say that I don't want to set metadata on the form. Well, what I do want to set metadata, but I want to set it on a document attachment that gets attached to the form. I want to ignore the form itself. I only want to set metadata on documents. And in fact, I might want to set different metadata on different documents in different groups in an attachment control. Well, if the metadata controls actually worked in such a way as to automatically apply the metadata to the form, when that's not what you want, that's not good. You need to be able to specify when and where and what objects to which you want to apply the metadata. So metadata doesn't get applied until you run the set metadata custom task. So this is as I said, I think it's the only one I know of, the only weird one that you just have to run anytime you want to set metadata. What I generally do is I just run it in the form on a form of, like, if I change the value of an attribute, or I change the value of a category from either the attribute or the category picker. Although I generally wouldn't do that. Attributes are generally set from a form field that is linked to the metadata attribute. So the attribute picker is not a super useful control in most cases. In any event, however you do it, none of that metadata gets set until you run set metadata. And so that's just one of the weird exceptions to don't use a CT if you can do it in the UI, because this one you just have to use. There is, even though there are what look like UI functions that do this, they don't. They just look like they do. So this is a tricky one to deal with. Another tricky one to deal with is data associated with business values. In the database connectors, there is the SQL command custom task. And this is one of those custom tasks that is the only way that you want to insert data in a database. We'll look at its custom config. Business values are great for extracting data. So if I want to run a select statement in SQL to pull any data from any database that I want, then great. I use the business value. Business values virtualize data, which means they're available everywhere in the product to everyone who has access to the design functions in the product. I only have to configure them once, and they are usable everywhere. Although obviously, if I reconfigure a business value and I remove a field that's being used in many places, I can also break it everywhere. So there is that. But I only want to use that for select statements, statements where I'm returning data from an external database. If I am going to use an insert, an update, or a delete command, the only way well, that's the problem. It's not the only way you can do it, but the only way that you should do it is via the SQL command custom task. Because you do have to individually configure the SQL command that does the update or insert or delete command. And thus you know exactly when it's going to run. You know where it is being run from, what object is running it, And it could be from either a process timeline or a form. It'll work equally well on both. And you know when that SQL command is going to run, how it's going to get invoked, and what its configuration is. And so you should always use the SQL command custom task if you're going to alter any data in a database. So here's something to keep in mind. When you go onto a business value, and we'll just open up this airport's business value here, and you can see it has some really simple SQL code. Process Director is not going to validate your SQL code in any way. Anytime there is any sort of SQL command text box, we are going to take that SQL command and we are going to pass it as is to SQL. Now, obviously, if in your SQL command, if you have some sort of parameterized query and you have a parameter, and let me see if I have a, do I have here? Okay, here's one where I have a parameter. Now, obviously, in this case, I've got a system variable, but that system variable is going to be converted to text, and it's going to send that text as part of the SQL statement. So it's not entirely as is, but the only things that we're going to change are any system variables or parameters or what have you. Technically, I guess parameters are system variables as well. Any system variables that you have, those are going to be evaluated. They are going to be converted to text. And then once they are converted to text, then we're just going to send your SQL as is to your SQL database, for better or for worse. Once you start writing SQL, you can write whatever you want. So technically, that does mean that you could have a business value that includes an insert, a select, or an update command. And it will run it because, as I said, we are not going to vet your SQL. Whatever you put in that box, we're going to assume that that's what you mean for it to do. And that is what it's going to do. It's an extraordinarily bad idea to try to alter data from a business value because, remember, business values are universal. They're available to everyone who has access to form design or timeline design. They can grab those business values. Anybody who does any condition anywhere in the system, it's available in the condition builder. They can grab a business value and they can run it. And if your business values alter data in the database, then that data is going to get altered. That's just how the system works. And that's what makes this SQL command custom task so important, because this is the one that if you're going to do any sort of database operations with that alter the fundamental data, this is what you want to use. So this is kind of a like the the set metadata custom task is just mandatory. You have to use it. You don't have a choice. The SQL command configuration or the SQL command custom task isn't technically mandatory, but you're probably going to severely regret not using the SQL command custom task if you're using some sort of other method to alter data in your database. As I've been saying, we can run custom tasks in either the form or in the process itself. There is a fundamental difference when I'm going to run a custom task in a process. So I'm going to have to create a process timeline. Well, and webinar TL, not YL, but TL. And we will close this for now. We'll create an activity. and we will turn this into a custom task activity. We'll go to the custom task tab. The first thing I have to do, obviously, is select a custom task that I want to run. So let's just run copy form data, and we'll add that custom task. And at the very top, now I get this set container form. So the main difference between running a custom task in a process timeline and running it in a form is that when I'm running it in the form, Process Director knows what form I'm running it in. It's run in that form's context. In a timeline activity, Process Director doesn't necessarily know what form you want to use as the base for, in this case, copy form data. It needs to know what your source form is, or as we call it here, the container form. So where is my primary data? What is the source of all of the data that I want? I need to specify this. For example, a process timeline might have more than one form associated with it. I can have 3, 4, 5 forms that are all part of a process timeline. And if I want to run a custom task, I'm going to need to specify which of those 5 forms I want to use as the source form for my custom task. And sure, it says optional. And in some cases, it is optional. But in most cases, it's not. Because if you don't know what your source form is, your container form, especially for something like copy form data, some of the other ones, well, it's not going to know what form the data is coming from. It doesn't know what to copy. And so therefore, it's going to get super hard to map form fields from your source field to your destination field if you're doing a copy form data, for example. And so you'll get this message. I guess technically this is an error message, although it's not presented that way, which is you have to configure a container form first. So if I don't know what my container form is, I don't know what my source form is. I don't know what my source form fields are. So I've got to set a container form. In this case, I don't even know what my destination fields are because I don't have I don't have the form to create set there. So it doesn't know what either of these two things are, but that's what the set container form does whenever you're in a custom task. That's why it appears there and why it doesn't appear in a form, because of the way the form works. So there are some custom tasks that are troublesome that you may want to look at an alternative means of implementing. The most common one I can think of right off the top of my head is, sure, I'll save it. The most common one I can think of off the top of my head is the convert to PDF custom task. So form conversion and transformation, PDF conversion, that's where I want to go. And oh, wait, that is not the one that I want to use. Sorry. That's a little bit different. I need form custom tasks. This is the one that I want to use here. It is not set up exactly. I think I went in this morning and I fixed this. So let me just confirm form conversions, PDF conversion. Let me look at my form to be sure that I converted it this morning. If this is the one, I did. There's my button. Okay, so this form is going to do a PDF conversion, and it's going to do it in the most tedious way possible. And it's simply because of the way form submission works in Process Director. So I will show you the bad thing with some custom tasks. Some custom tasks, and the most common of which is the PDF conversion custom task, can be painful to implement in a form or a process timeline. Now, in this particular case, the custom task is in the process timeline, not in the form itself. So we have our little form. and we have some form fields, and we're going to fill it out, and then we're going to upload a document. And so we're going to browse for that document, and I'm going to pick something that is tortuously long with lots of pictures. Let's see. That's 5.8 kilobytes. Do I have anything bigger? Do I have a huge Word document that I want to convert to PDF? 5.4, which is pretty big, but I think 5.8 takes the cake. So I'm going to, oh, wait a second. 6.292 megabytes. Loving this. We are going to upload the 6.292 megabyte document as a document attachment. If it's that big, it means it's got a lot of pictures, and those pictures all have to be converted too. We're going to convert this document to PDF. Now, the way that this works is my process itself. And for those of you who've gone through and watched this webinar, you know that I have the PDF conversion inside the very first activity that will occur when I submit the form. And then the form is going to pop back up for review. I've tried to make this go as fast as I can. For example, in the options section, I've got this set to do not show the user's next task, because I am the user who will be assigned the next task. I don't want to show that task. I want to be able to submit the form and get out of it. But unfortunately, that's going to be a problem. Also, the other thing that I noticed, oh, okay, I thought I got a notification off this. Apparently I didn't. Fine. So what's going to happen is I'm going to submit this form. It's going to do the PDF conversion. And then I am setting this to do not show the user's next task, to intentionally try not to show me the next task, because it's not going to work, but I'm going to do it because when I hit submit now, we are going to be sitting and watching the little spinny work for a long, long time, because I built this into my process. And this is a very process intensive custom task. I'm not only converting my form, but I'm converting that document. And that was only a 6 megabyte. That's the biggest document that I have handy at the moment. And it's got a lot of images in it. And it took me a good long time to convert that document. And that was a quick one, given its size. We'll go into workspaces. We'll look at our user profile, where I should, of course, have my task assigned to me for that. I want to clear those out. So those are my two forms that I just submitted. So there is my demo app doc, and then here is my, I didn't want to download it. I just wanted to view it. Okay, well, it's going to do this. There's my doc, and oh, I do not like that at all. Why did it change my type font? Oh, that is super ugly. But in any event, there's my document. It's all been converted, but it made me wait a long time. And again, this was only a 6 megabyte document. We actually have customers that have much, much larger documents, and documents that use TIFF files that all have to be converted. There's all kinds of stuff. Let me just cancel all these processes. I mean, they may have, 20, 30 megabyte documents that are all uncompressed images, all of which they're trying to convert in Process Director. That might take some time, and it's real tedious to sit there for 25 or 30 or 45 seconds while this massive conversion takes place. Again, this is because of the way that Process Director does the conversion, the way it does form submissions. What's going to happen is I'm going to submit this form, and that form is going to stay open, and it's going to show me the spinny until it finds another activity that says, oh, I've got another activity. This has to be assigned to somebody else. And so it's not going to close that form until this PDF conversion task is done, because it's all going to happen synchronously. That's tedious, especially what if I had like, 4 big documents like that? I don't want to sit there and wait for a minute and a half to watch the spinny. That's going to make your users start thinking, oh, something is broken. So there's a very useful custom task to implement to make that happen offline. So the way that I would do that, rather than running that custom task activity here, well, that custom task anyway. So what I would probably do is run a run process custom task. So process and run process. Now, I don't actually have the process, so it's going to be hard for me to configure this at the moment, although, I do have my form, so I can set that form. And in my run process custom task, well, I can't configure it because I don't have another process. What I would do in a case like that, where I'm trying to do that PDF conversion, is I'm probably going to want to run it asynchronously. So I would create a new little sub process. And by the way, I can do this in the form as well. I'm doing it in the process timeline. I don't necessarily have to do it in the process timeline. I can call the run process from the form. The important thing is to use the run process custom task, because the run process custom task runs asynchronously, which means the main process doesn't have to hang around and wait for that custom task to complete before it moves on. So what I would do in this case is I would create a little custom task. I would call it my convert to PDF process. And I would, of course, set the appropriate form and stuff. And I would set the form, in my case, obviously, to the original CT webinar form. This form will actually always be attached, because when I launch the run process custom task, it's going to transfer my form over to this little sub process. And that form will then be available as a form attachment, and it will just set that original form as the form for my timeline. And I really only need one activity here, which is my convert to PDF custom task. So here then I could just grab my, and I'm not going to fully configure all of this stuff. I'm just going to do the sort of the bare bones basics, but I would just have it set to the convert to PDF custom task. I would add that custom task. Obviously, my container form is going to be my CT webinar form that will be attached to this process when it starts. I'll do whatever configuration I need to do here to ensure that that gets converted. Obviously, I want to pull process references. In this case, there is a setup for the custom task itself, for the group names for the attachments. We're just going to elide past that. I'm just building the activity, and we'll just call this convert. And we'll close that. And then back in my main process, oops, I clicked the wrong one, didn't I? Back in my main process, this first activity here will now be the run process, and I'll just be able to go in and say, well, I want to launch the conversion process. So training is what I want, CT basics, convert to PDF. There is my process. I don't need a new form or anything like that, because we're not actually going to run it. We just have it set to run process. And what's going to happen now is that when my webinar, and let me add my other activity, my activity 2, and I'll make it dependent on activity 1. So activity 1 is going to fire, then activity 2 is going to fire. As we've seen in previous webinars, when we talk about processes and sub-processes, I'm running sub-processes asynchronously. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to submit my form. It's going to do all of the conversion stuff, but that's all going to happen now asynchronously. It's going to kick off this launch process custom task CT, and it's going to run me directly into activity 2 because I'm the next assignee. If you don't want to force your users to wait, then you can actually run custom tasks asynchronously. Because remember, when you're going between process timelines and you're using either a process activity type or you're using the run process CT, all of the forms and document attachments that are in the main process, this one, will all get transferred into that sub-process and will be available for use there. And when the sub-process is done, all of those objects will again be copied back to the main process and will be available to use in the main process. So with this configuration, what that means is I don't have to run the convert to PDF, and there are some other custom tasks that are, equally tedious to use because they make you sit and wait for the spinny to stop spinning before the form actually submits. So I can get past that simply by running them asynchronously. Just encapsulate them in another process as a single CT step in that process. And then I can call that process from either the form or the process timeline. It will run asynchronously. And when it's done, it will show me those document attachments. Now, there is, of course, a caveat to running the custom task in that way. And the caveat is if I submit this form and it sends my document off to activity 1 and starts running it asynchronously, if I am actually the assignee for activity 2, my form is not going to go away. It's just going to reload quick and show me the form. What it will not show me, probably because the conversion is not yet done and will not be done for, 45 seconds, a minute and a half, who knows, however long it takes for all of those objects to get converted, they're not going to show up on my form until that conversion is finished and the form is refreshed. So if I get shown this form in activity 2 before the sub process that I called an activity run finishes, I'm not going to see any of my document attachments. Well, I might see the attachments that already existed, obviously, but I'm not going to see the PDF conversion that I'm working on to convert this, 30 or 40 megabytes worth of documents and pictures into a single PDF file. I'm not going to see that until it's done. So you have to judge about some of these more intensive, and the most common one, as I said, is convert to PDF. So we'll just pretend that that's the one that's the problem, because it most often is. I want to run that convert to PDF. I've got some advantages and disadvantages to doing it either way. The advantage to running it synchronously is that when the form reloads, everything that needs to be there is going to be there, but it means that submitting the form is going to be a painful process because that form is going to hang. And by the way, we do get, support tickets, not regularly, but not uncommonly, saying, hey, I've hit submit and my form takes like a minute and a half to submit. What are you doing after you submit the form? Well, I'm converting a whole bunch of PDF files. Ah, well, there's your problem. So that's the disadvantage there. You can make this happen a lot faster when you submit the form. You can make that form go away instantly and instantly assign a new task to somebody else. But your drawback there is they're not going to see the PDF documents until that sub-process is complete and those PDFs have been reattached back up at the main process. So if they really need to see that as soon as, and we're assuming, of course, that somebody gets assigned the task and they open the form immediately before the, in less than a minute, and they don't see the new documents. That's probably not generally the case. So it's probably safe to offload your PDF conversion into a separate sub process. And that probably works just fine because people are going to, first of all, they're not even going to know they have a task until they get an email. It may take them a couple of minutes to read the email. Then they'll see it. And maybe at that point, they'll click on it. And hopefully by that time, your conversion is done. So by the time, the 3 to 5 minutes that it would take the normal user, even those who are, really on top of things to get into your form, it's probably okay. The conversion is probably done. But for any highly intensive custom task that takes a long time. Oh, and by the way, some of the SQL command tasks might take a long time. I mean, if you're doing some sort of weird external database chopping to, make some data changes or run some very complex stored procedure, a similar problem is going to arise there. If I submit the form and it kicks off that SQL command custom task, and I've got some super complex, 100 lines long of a stored procedure I've written, well, that's going to hang up your form too. The form is not going to submit until that's done. So again, that may be another case where you want to run the launch process or the run process custom task and just make that happen asynchronously. So asynchronous execution is always an option based on the way that we have the custom tasks configured. Now, as I said earlier, the set form data generally runs out of the form, but not always. The one instance where I always use it, and this is a personal preference, so I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not your supervisor, but I have it set generally as the very first activity in the process timeline, where it sets the request number that I am going to use as my unique request number for every form submission. It sets it right here in the custom task. Technically, I don't have to use the custom task for this. I mean, there is, after all, set form data. It does exist. I could just delete this completely, and I could go to the approval section and where's set form data? There it is. And then on task start, I could just run the set form data from right here. I could just set the value on my form field right here with the whatever value I want. There's a reason I don't do this, and that's because I want to make things explicit. Because I want to build things with the assumption that I might get hit by a bus. And if so, somebody who comes back in and looks at stuff needs to be able to fairly easily figure out what it is that I'm doing. I'm willing to give up the minimal overhead that I add to my application to call this custom task, this set form data custom task, even though technically I have set form data available in the timeline definition itself, and I have it available in the form itself. But I want to ensure that I don't actually set that field's data until I have an actual submission. So I really can't do it in the form, but I could do it here, and I wouldn't need to use the custom task, and I wouldn't need to add the extra overhead. I'm doing it for a design purpose because I want to have someone who looks at my process timeline understand explicitly what it is that I'm trying to accomplish at each step in my timeline. I want to make it as obvious as possible. Obviously, if there are needed when conditions or what have you, those show up here as well. So I've got a pretty good idea just looking at this without even opening up any of the activities themselves. I've got a pretty good idea about what each one of these things does. So the other thing that you have to take into consideration is, does invoking the custom task rather than the UI activity enhance the understandability, the comprehensibility, the clarity of my design? If it does, even though you usually wouldn't invoke a custom task like this in this way because it's unnecessary, you might do it anyway, simply for clarity's point of view. All right. Well, with that, I think those are all of the custom task basics that I had to talk about today. I know for some of you, this was probably rather pedestrian and stuff that you already knew. But I did want to cover that because it's just good to cover the basics and sort of the tips and tricks and when and whys sometime of how you use custom tasks, and just to ensure that everybody has a general understanding of how custom tasks work. This is a short one, so you get an extra 45 minutes back today. So congratulations on that. I appreciate the fact that you show up every Thursday. I'll look forward to talking to you again next Thursday. Until then, so long.